Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now, Season 4. I'm your host, Keith Murphy Deaconcini. Today I'm talking to Jenny Sichel, who is the Operation Director of the National Council on Independent Living. Jenny, so great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Keith. I'm super excited to chat with you a little bit today.
Jenny is also a Paralympian. That should have been in the intro.
No, that was great.
So we've been friends for years, quote unquote, years, never met in person. Uh, but I feel like I know you so well already. For the listeners and viewers who aren't interviewing you, please tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today. Super broad question, but you've lived quite a life.
It has been a very non-linear path to where I have gotten to today. I actually went to the Paralympics, the Rio Games in 2016 as a coxswain in rowing, won a silver medal there. Go ahead.
Wait, could you define that term?
Yeah, absolutely. So the coxswain is the person in the boat who you'll usually see is shouting at the rowers into a microphone. And I kind of do three different things as a coxswain. I steer the boat, I motivate the crew, and I also do in-boat coaching for the crew to make them go faster.
So basically, a drill sergeant on water.
Yeah, I'm really good at telling people what to do.
I'm. I don't doubt that at all, Jenny. So, what got you interested in the Paralympics, and
Mhm.
how did you train for that in both body and mind?
Yeah, so I actually started rowing in college at a Division III college, Bryn Mawr. And
Wait, sorry, how did you choose rowing as your element or sport workout of choice?
yeah, so in high school, I was in marching band and I played softball. And Bryn Mawr had neither of those. So I was like, well, what other sport can I do? And it was either soccer, which I had played before high school, or rowing, which was one of two sports you could walk on with no experience at the college. Soccer was like, oh, you reached out to us too late. It'll be an extra $100 for preseason training. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go join the rowing team. And that was how I got my start in rowing, basically. And then ended up actually injuring myself as a rower and switched over into the coxswain position. So that was kind of where I got my start there. And then ended up randomly coxing the adaptive national team coach at a race. And after the race, she ended up emailing me about 2 weeks later and was like, hey, you were really good. I'd love to invite you to some development camps and potentially have you come to try out for the national team. And so that was how I got my start on the Paralympic side of the national team. And it wasn't actually until I had been on the team for a while that I realized that my mental health challenges were actually a disability. So I do identify as part of the disability community as well. Not classifiable for the Paralympics, but a part of the community. And so, yeah.
Interesting. Can you tell me more about why mental health challenges aren't classifiable with the Paralympics, or yours one,
Yeah. So
but you
I,
also identify.
mhm.
I mean, I'm confused.
That is totally fair. So, to give you a bit of an idea, the Paralympics have basically two broad types of classification: a physical disability, well, I guess, yeah, we'll say two: a physical disability or a visual disability, like blindness. And so, within those two classifications, mental health is not a part of it. And so, as the coxswain, you in the boat, you do not actually have to have a disability that is classifiable, or a disability at all. You can identify as able-bodied. And so I was considered like a guide runner would be for a blind athlete. I was an athlete competition partner at the Paralympics versus the designation of an athlete because I don't have a classifiable disability. Does that help clarify?
Yes,
Cool. Cool.
absolutely. So, how did your non-linear journey, which I'm beginning to see why it's
Yeah.
non-linear, how did that lead you to your current job?
Yeah. So that was like the rowing side of my nonlinear journey, or part of the rowing side. And then when I was actually in college and all throughout college, I really wanted to go into veterinary medicine as a career path. Right after I graduated, yeah, I know. Right after I graduated from college, I worked at a veterinary hospital, volunteered there,
Okay.
and while I was there, realized that I actually liked interacting more with the owners than treating the animals. And so I figured, probably not the right career field for me.
That's very smart. I
Yeah,
mean, no judgment.
no,
That was a very good pickup. Thank you.
yeah. No, 100%. And so I had wanted to be a veterinarian for like 12 years, basically, by that point. And I had not thought about any other career path to the point where I'd like worked at zoos and that kind of thing, wanted to go into exotic animal veterinary medicine. And so after I had that realization, I was like, well, what do I love to do? And one of the things was I always was interested in like medicine, and specifically when an athlete like went down on the field, what happened to them, and how to treat them and how to help them. And so while I was training, I actually moved out to California, lived there for a little while, and ended up working at or volunteering at a orthopedic surgery center, and worked a bunch of other odd jobs while I was there as well, including like I was a barista, I worked as a fiduciary assistant, I worked in headhunting, and I babysat kind of thing too.
So, Ginny, what haven't you done?
I've never jumped out of an airplane.
Okay, fair enough. Uh, yeah, it's. Are you sure that's the only thing you haven't done? Because you've listed quite a bit of jobs. Again, had to go back to the non-linear
Yeah.
path
Yeah.
that your life has
Oh yeah.
taken. I, I mean, before we get to that, it's interesting that you wanted to be a vet for
Hmm.
12 years
Yeah.
and then you for lack of a better term, fell out of love with it. I mean, I'm 2 or 3 years. I can totally see that,
Yeah.
but I mean, well, it's like I didn't think that would be a part of the interview that I would hop on, but because I'm a very curious person, I
Mhm.
have to know because that's
Yeah.
a good chunk of life. Yeah, you mentioned that you liked interacting with the owners more than the animals, and I could make the joke, why do you hate animals? I don't think you do at all.
No, no,
That's
no, no, no.
a
Yeah.
joke, obviously, but do tell me
Mhm.
what happened at the end of 12 years to have the insight of, well, this is not for me anymore?
Yeah. So I had never actually worked at a veterinary hospital. And so when I did my volunteering and interning at the vet hospital that summer, I remember realizing like I love animals. Don't get me wrong. Like I absolutely love animals. I love being around animals, everything, like everything like that. But I was finding it hard to, um, not hard necessarily, but I think I just enjoyed chatting with the owners, more so than providing treatment for the animals. So if it was just interacting with animals, great, let's go. I will like do that in a heartbeat. But actually treating the animals, I just was having a hard time, I think, like putting the two and two together when I actually tried it.
Hmm.
So I think I'd always had this kind of impression of something different. And then when I actually went and worked there, it was not what I had originally thought it was going to be. And just not quite up my alley, in all honesty.
Okay.
So that was like the realization I had while I was working there. I was kind of like, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I'm not sure I want to go down this pathway, actually.
So Ginny has been a Paralympian. She's studied, I assume, veterinarian science, done uh, several other odd jobs,
Mm.
small kids bog really of other employment, again, non-linear path to the extreme, really. How did that, how did you end up as the operations director on the Natural Council on Independent Living?
Yeah, so while I was training, I was actually competing in Bulgaria at the time. 30 years old, and I applied for an internship at a different disability inclusion philanthropic nonprofit organization. Got the internship, worked there for a little while, and then ended up becoming a part-time into a full-time position with that organization. From there, the organization ended up departing the field of disability inclusion, and the program that I was helping run at the time got moved over to Nickel. And so I actually applied to Nickel, which is the acronym for the National Council on Independent Living. I applied to Nickel for the coordinator role of that youth movement and got that position. So started working at Nickel for about a year until the operations director position opened up. And so then I applied for that position and ended up getting it. And I was actually just at the end of my master's degree in public administration at the time when I got the operations director position. So it kind of my like nonlinear path ended up bringing me into almost exactly what I wanted to do. I just didn't know it. I'm working in the nonprofit world and running operations. I love it. Like, I just love it. And eventually, I'd love to be an executive director someplace or run an organization. So I don't know how it got me there, but we're here now and I'm going with it. So that was my like convoluted pathway into this role.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that you still train on the weekends, or
Mhm.
most weekends. Let's go into developing and maintaining the Paralympian mindset and what does that mean and entail? Because once a Paralympian, always a Paralympian. We were talking about
Yep.
that much earlier, months ago. And so, yeah, bring that up because that's a fascinating uh, subject to delve in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of people see athletes and they are training their bodies to almost perfection to be able to perform on the international stage. And as a coxswain, I had to train my mind in a way to be able to perform on the international stage. So that means decision making, handling pressure, interactions with people. And also, I think a large part of it is resilience too, mental resilience. And now I definitely still practice that. I still get in a boat every now and then. I'm also coaching. So I still practice that sort of a couple of those aspects of the mindset, but I think also a lot of it takes place outside of the boathouse too. So, like in my current job, it's that challenge that I love and that sort of resilience that when something knocks you down, you get right back up and you come back even stronger. And so it's like leading up to the games, it was definitely a bunch of that. I mean, you get told no and you're like devastated, and then you come back and it's even better. But even now, like you talk about practicing that and training, and I mean, I'm planning a conference right now in DC, and there's been a lot of hiccups, a lot of challenges, and it's okay. We know there's always going to be this. What can we do to make sure that any challenges that do arise, we find solutions appropriately, quickly, and decisively? And those solutions have to be effective as well. So I think it's like what I learned leading up to the Rio Games as a coxswain, and with that sort of mentality going into it, I can now practice and use in my everyday life in addition to being on the water with it.
So, when people think of Paralympians, they think of people training their bodies
Mhm.
mostly. But you mentioned that you had to train your mind, which I'm sure every Paralympian
Oh, yeah.
to some extent had to do. But when your focus is more the mind than the body, but also there's countless research on the mind body connection and really honing that.
Yep.
Like, I'll make a joke at my own expense here. If my body could talk and I said, hey, I really want to be a Paralympian, my body would probably look at me and be like, are you joking? Yours will probably be, okay, let's go, because we've been training for this. And so, did you always want to be a Paralympian? And then, once you're a Paralympian, because how did, I mean, it doesn't matter if you don't go to another national or international games. Once you're in, and you have to maintain, and that's where the mindset comes in, I'm assuming. And so, how do you, for again, lack of a better term, mentally walk the walk
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
roll the roll?
Yeah. So I will start with your first question about if I always wanted to be a Paralympian. Um, uh, I remember being 6 years old and I saw Nancy Kerrigan on TV. And she said that she was 6 years old when she started figure skating. And my first thought as a 6 year old was, oh my God, I still have a chance to go to the Olympics. So yes, I have always wanted to go to the games. Um, yeah, I know.
Six,
So
six.
6 years old, I said, oh, I still have a shot to go to the Olympics. I need to get started on a sport, was my thinking as a 6 year old.
And what would what were your parents' reactions to hearing their 6-year old daughter saying that?
So I don't think I actually said it.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I
I I just knew I wanted to do that, and my thought was like, "Oh, I still have a shot." And actually, I think partially because of my mental health disability, I never actually voiced how much I wanted to go to the games. And I even remember because I don't want to jinx it, quote unquote. So I remember in college, I told my coach, my rowing coach, and I said, yeah, I want to go as far as I can in coxing. Um, and my thought was, I want to go to London. I want to go to Rio. Like, I want to work this and do it. But I never said it because I was too afraid that it would jinx it. And that was totally part of my mental health disability coming in. So funny story that you would ask that too. And then I think on your second question about it was about mindset.
yeah,
And
mindset and carrying forth
yes,
that mindset,
yeah,
because again, I'll keep borrowing from the
yeah.
Marines. Once a Marine, always a
Mhm.
Marine. Once a Paralympian, always a Paralympian.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of my mindset was actually very much insecurity. I had a lot of insecurity going up to the games. In fact, I think at one of our trials for the national team, one of our selection camps, my I got so anxious. I have an anxiety disorder, and I got so anxious that my entire body and brain just almost shut down during camp. And I came out of that camp and I remember my coach, I was selected for the team. I got selected for the team. And I remember my coach actually saying to me, hey, Jenny, you were really good at camp this year. Like you were super relaxed. And I was like, oh, if only you knew. So I think, yeah, a lot of it was definitely like I think it's like honing your skills so much so that when you do have that anxiety, when you do have something else going on, you can still perform. And so walking the walk after the games, I think there's always going to be that insecurity. Am I doing this right? Am I good enough? Is this going to happen? And at some point, especially as I've gotten older, part of me is just like, I need to be confident in who I am and what I am. And whatever comes out of my mouth comes out of my mouth sometimes. And, I try to control it, but sometimes it's like that confidence comes out. And yeah, I'm kind of rambling right now, but that's okay. I think that it's very much building that confidence until you can walk the walk and until you do have that credibility and that street cred, for lack of a better way to say it. And even then, there's some insecurities still inside. But by that point, you have kind of, or at least I have kind of learned how to work through those insecurities mentally.
So talk more about how that mindset of a Paralympian comes in to play, for lack of a better word, pre-game and post-game,
Yeah.
because we talked earlier uh, while we were setting up for
Hmm.
this interview, how not everyone can or does handle it effectively. And there's no shade or judgment
No.
there at all. But as a layperson who knows nothing about this
Mhm.
world, even if you've studied so much, which I do, it's part of
Yeah.
my job. I want to know because I feel that there's a lot more information out there readily available about. It goes back to the assumption that Par- Paralympians really work their body, really train their body. And while that's certainly true, you've hit on a very important point. That I'm I'm positive you're not the first and you're not the last one to hit on this point, but the mindset is, dare I say it, even more important. And what is it like
Hmm.
to confront in your mind, regardless of a anxiety disorder, but even if you do have an anxiety disorder, pre-game, how do you confront the this is happening, the this is win or lose, or no matter what, it's going to alter your life and how people see you and feel about you, whether you know it or not, and that it is not, certainly not a burden, but a responsibility that you have to carry forth. And so walk us through stay, Mike. Walk us through beginning that journey pre-game or even pre-game and
Yeah.
going through the whole games and then
Okay.
post game and like to where you are now.
Yeah. So I'll start pre-game because at least in rowing, I like to abide by you don't do much different in practice in a regatta or in a race that you don't do in practice. So anything you do in practice, you're doing in the race. You don't change anything for the race, basically. So a lot of that pre-race mindset comes into comes into play during practice. And so you almost practice the mindset during when you do pieces, when you are on land. I did a lot of visualization. So it's really training the brain to be able to react to the different situations that you might encounter during a race. And then I think also before the race, you semi bring in that mindset, and you really, for each person, it totally differs pre-race. Some people really like being on their own pre-race. I used to go sit, listen to music, and do visualizations before the race. To calm myself down and really get in the zone. And then as soon as you hit the water, all of the anxiety disappears. It is so strange. At least for me, this is what would happen. I would get those like pre-race jitters and nerves and kind of zone in, which is what I had done during practice. I would zone in when I was still on land, take time, do my visualizations, come out, lower my breath, that kind of thing, just calm down the entire system a lot. Because if I sound nervous, the rowers get nervous. And then as soon as we launch off the dock, we're in the boat together. So you know that no matter what happens, every person has each other's back in the boat. And that applies for the coxswain, that applies for any of the rowers as well. We are all athletes moving the boat together. So no matter what happens, you know, you're in it with each other. With that being said, one thing that we did practice before racing was the growth mentality and growth mindset, where we have worked hard to get here. We weren't born, I mean, I was born with the chemicals in my brain, but we weren't born with the ability to row, with the ability to take on this amount of pressure. We have worked really hard and almost built up the layers to get there. So that if something does fail, the way I like to look at it, it's kind of like an onion. Maybe the outside layer fails, but you still have this entire core of an onion to rely and fall back on. And by the time you get to the Paralympic level, that core is so built up that even if something does go wrong, you're able to still perform. And so having that growth mindset, like I worked hard to get here, really helps when it comes to the performance. Talking about during the race, sitting on the start line is probably one of the most stress-inducing things, because especially as a coxswain in the boat that I was in, I am laying down in the bow of the boat. So that's looking directly down the race course, a totally empty race course, fully in front of me, just buoys. And then they say USA or United States of America, France, whatever it is. They poll all of the crews. So you're sitting there for a good 2 minutes, looking down the race course before they even start polling. And then they poll all of the crews. And something that I picked up, I do a lot of skiing too, downhill skiing. And something that I just when I would go on a steep slope growing up, I'd say, well, there's nothing to it but to do it. And so I actually would bring that in when I was sitting on the start line of the race course. I'm like, well, we're here. There's no going back. I cannot back out right now. There's literally, we got to do it. Nothing to it but to do it. Let's go. And so that was my mentality in the race and just sitting on the start line. And then you almost just fall back on everything that you've done during the race. I literally I could tell you everything I've said during races, but it hasn't been anything different than during practices. Um, so you kind of you read the race and give an idea of what's going on, that kind of stuff, and perform, but it's nothing different than something you've already done. Um, and then I think just to touch on the post race, for me, I've won a lot of international silver medals, and they always say that the even numbers are the worst to get, worst places to get, because second, you're just out of first. You don't go to a race to come in second. And fourth, you're just out of the medals. So for me, I think a lot of post race is decompressing and almost you've been on such a high functioning at such a high level for so many months that all of a sudden you have this massive, I don't want to say like devastation because it's still amazing that I got all of those silver medals, but like that's not what you go for, and so it's very bittersweet in a way, and so it's really decompressing from all of that, yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, no, I don't know that obviously, but when I was mentioning post rates, I mean, what you touched on is very important, the decompression, but post rates, everyday life,
Mhm.
be caring for the mindset of a
Gotcha.
Paralympian and don't want to pry too much into
Yeah.
your personal life, but it must. Once you're a Paralympian, you're
Mhm.
always a Paralympian. And I'm sure there are skills
Mhm.
that you've learned and fostered
Yeah.
as a Paralympian that you use in your day-to-day job, in your
Mhm.
interactions with other people. And so, what did you like carrying that mantle in
Mhm.
your interactions with people in your everyday life, regardless of the situation?
Honestly, it's not too much different than like training. I think that, you train the mindset and you train the way that you're thinking. And so I don't actively still be like, oh, okay, I need to visualize, what I'm doing during my workday. No, I don't like actively do that, but I do think that, you have trained that mindset for so long and established it and grown it. It just kind of like living day to day, I'm just myself. And I think that because I've trained it so much, that's become a part of who I am now.
So it's a automatic, my,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And so are you trying, are you hoping to compete again naturally in the games? Are you just content, comfortable, just training
Mhm.
and just being where you are because you've had a very interesting life and you've only told me about a few years of it.
Yeah.
Uh, but in those few years, I mean, you said at the top you've taken a non-linear journey, and boy, have you ever taken a non-linear I still can't get over. Yeah, I want to be a vet. Worked with animals for 12 years.
Mhm.
And then, nope, I don't want
Yeah,
to do that
yeah,
anymore. And I
yeah.
mean, I just go back to that 6-year old uh, being damn straight you don't want to do. Uh,
It's so true.
yeah, I'm snarky. But
Oh,
it's
snark is my language.
oh yeah, we'll get along great at the next conference then. But it's like it's so fascinating because all those touch points, the smorgasbord of professional jobs you've had,
Mhm.
have all in ways you'll probably never understand completely had led you not only to training and competing in the Paralympics, but also to the job you currently do. How long have you been in that role?
So I've been in my current role for about 2.5 years now.
And
Um,
you seem pretty happy and content in that role. And we've barely touched on it. What are some of your favorite things about what you currently do? And what is it like being the operations director?
yeah. So I think that, I love the people interaction that I have as operations director. I think that's one of my favorite things is just chatting with people, getting different perspectives, learning new things, and challenging myself every day. And I think that with what I'm doing, it is a lot of day-to-day stuff. So a lot of making sure everybody has what they need, all the other staff have what they need to be able to perform, making sure that we basically keep the lights on, for lack of a better way to say it. But in addition to that day to day and the people interaction, I also get to I was a math major in college. And so I'm very much like an
Another
introvert.
piece of
Oh,
the
totally.
yeah.
Totally. There's a lot to me. But I'm also very much an extroverted introvert. So while I love interacting with people and chatting with people, I also recharge like on my own. And so doing spreadsheets is like one of my favorite things. I love working in Excel. I know. Um, so that's my other favorite
I
aspect
have
too.
no words. You've made me speechless for all of 5 milliseconds. I'm right now visualizing you decompressing from a busy work day, a busy work
Yep.
week at home. I assume you have a
Yep.
dog or a cat, whatever, and just doing spreadsheets. Like some people watch TV, they read, they pick out on junk food. No, you're there. They maybe have a beer or two. You're just there doing spreadsheets. And I know it sounds like I'm
Oh
making
no.
fun of you. I'm not trying
No,
to
I have a beer while I do the spreadsheets. Don't
oh,
worry.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Thank
we're
goodness.
good.
I mean,
You thought I was like, oh, why does she do spreadsheets? No, I have a drink while I'm doing them.
that just makes my heart so happy
Good,
to hear
good.
that. But no, what is it about spreadsheets and doing them? Because that's a
Yeah.
very interesting way of decompressing of
Hmm.
stress relief that I have to be honest, I've never heard someone say that. And so I assume that had to do with your math background.
Yeah,
But that's a very curious way of decompression.
yeah.
Go into that mindset.
So I don't always like during the workday, I'll do spreadsheets and that'll help me decompress. Outside of work, I do enjoy a TV show or crossword
Oh,
puzzles or things like
uh,
that.
okay.
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
I would just imagine you at
No,
home with a beer doing
doing my spreadsheets.
spreadsheets
Um,
for like 4 or 5 hours and then
no,
getting ready to
yeah,
for bed. It's
no,
like, well, that visualization was way off. But
yeah.
no, no, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised by that because I don't know. You may have
Yeah.
that may have been you, Jen, how you
Mhm.
decompress after work. It's just that's the image that it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, and so what got you into spreadsheets as a tool for decompressing?
I just really like it being quiet. And for me, a good spreadsheet where you're really like figuring out numbers and formulas and making things match is so concrete. And there's no guessing to it. It's very much a puzzle, kind of like a crossword puzzle would be, or like a mind
Okay.
sort of puzzle would be, where there's something wrong. It's not, the spreadsheet isn't working. What is wrong within it, and how can I make it work? And then when you get it to work, it's also very mathematical. So when you get it to work, it just like you get that satisfaction immediately. There's no guessing, there's no anything like that. It's like, oh, look, the numbers match. Love it, type of thing. Uh,
So what got you into math and
yeah.
where did that passion develop? And was it that there's always an answer that you can
No.
okay.
So I actually got into math. So I do have a history of math in my family. My mom was a statistician. My grandma was a calculus teacher. My dad works in economics. So I do have a history of like math in my family. So there's probably some genetic component to it. But
So
I
yeah,
actually,
math was encoded into your blood. Won't
yeah,
use fancy language like
yeah,
that. Go on.
yeah. Um, uh, and so I actually became a math major in college because it was my sophomore year and I was undecided as a major, but I really wanted to go abroad and for a study abroad program. And it was the day abroad applications were due. And of course, that's when I started my abroad application. And they said, oh, you have to have a major advisor's signature on the sheet in order to study abroad. And I was like, well, shoot, I don't have a major. What do I have enough courses in? And it was either math or chemistry, and it was tough to go abroad in chemistry. So I became a math major.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
I
one does,
can. Yeah, yeah.
hmm.
Wow. So you, wow, okay.
You know.
Uh, another piece of the
Mhm.
journey that,
Yep.
wow, well, there's so many twists and turns
Hmm.
to your not, I mean, and
Yeah.
So we've only scratched the surface of wow, uh damn 6 year old you
Uh-huh.
really had a game plan in the
Yeah.
back that wow, it's been a non-linear
Hmm.
smorgasbord of I'm the direct opposite of a math major. I'm
That's fair.
even though I have it in my family as
Mhm.
well, I'm much more of a creative writer.
So I love creative writing too. And
Oh,
I love being creative and like doing crafts and writing nonfiction or fiction. And just like, yeah, I really enjoy that creative side as well. Um, so I think there's definitely like something to that. Maybe I don't know if there's like a psychological reason for the fact that like I love the creativity and the math. But yeah.
so creativity,
Mhm.
analytical, snarky.
Oh yeah, I do improv too. I'm part of an improv group and called Practically
Okay,
Normal.
that's a very apt name. Uh, do you do any acting? What about singing?
I
Have
don't
you
sing. I sing in the shower. I do acting, but I don't sing.
have you thought about writing a book about training and really developing the Paralympic mindset? Because just listening to you talk, it's like we could totally make this into a audiobook interview very, very easily. And I mean, that I'm really pitching that idea to you on this podcast right now. Why don't you add yet another skill and just become a writer? Because you clearly have a lot to say about these subjects. And I think that people will really get a kick out of and enjoy the non linear journey that you've been on because it's not over, but
Yeah.
and
It's
hopefully not for a long time. But even now, where you started,
oh
I,
yeah.
I'm a creative writer.
Yeah.
If someone asked me to write this story and to create a character like you, I would be like, okay, 6 years old, and she gets to there,
Yeah.
let's say 30 years later.
Uh-huh.
How the I mean, that would make my creativity
Yeah.
brain implode.
Yeah.
And I like to think of myself as a very creative person.
Mhm.
All I'm saying, and look who's now rambling. So,
All good.
all I'm saying is, please put that in the back of your mind on future projects of something you should
It's
hopefully consider down the road because that would be a fantastic read.
so it is on my to-do list actually already.
Good,
I'm
good.
I have started looking into it. I would like to do that within the next year or two. Oh,
Wonderful.
oh yeah, no, it's already on
And
my like, hold on, let me find some time to do this kind of to-do list.
just wake up with the spreadsheets. Oh, cut. Yeah. Yeah, wake up with spreadsheets.
Okay,
Have
it's okay.
that be a chapter title.
Go into Word. You
Yeah.
know, break up with the spreadsheets, go to Word. That just like sounds like, I don't know. Sounds terrifying to me, you know?
Have that be what that chapter
Yeah,
is
right?
about. Why I am terrified of waking up with spreadsheets, because Excel is my homie. It's
Mhm.
really
Yep.
my primal love language. And how do I break out of that mindset?
Yep. Yep.
Wow, we're having way too much fun.
Oh my
And
God.
like I said at the beginning, this is made sober. But
Great.
uh, when uh, when I had to do the intro 10 times, we have fun here. Sometimes. Wrapping up, and I do hope, Ginny, that you will come back because I
Oh yeah.
really don't want to close out this interview because you are such a delight to talk to. I had no idea. I mean, that pre-interview we did months ago was, I'm like, okay, we're doing it months later. I
Yeah.
wonder how much of that is still gonna hold
Mhm.
true. Turns out almost all of it did. Uh, but until please come back.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
and so I like to end every interview, uh,
Hmm.
a conversation with two questions. Um, in case there are any aspiring pre-Olympians, math majors,
Yeah.
veterinarians, uh, vet techs,
All of the above.
non-profit rich kids, all of the above, all self-advocates wanting to make self-advocacy their
Yep.
professional and personal mission. As someone who's worn many hats and has
Hmm.
had a very non-linear path uh, to where you are now, what would be some advice you would give
Yeah. I
the
think
yeah,
so I live by my motto, which is I'm a viewer of the gold lining, which you've heard of the silver lining. I am
yeah,
sick and tired of silver because I've won too many silver medals. I'm done with it. And so we're over. I'm leaving silver behind. So I am a viewer of the gold lining. And I think that the best advice I could give is that whenever anything goes wrong or something negative happens, if you have that mindset, you will always find a positive from it and grow from that experience. And that is how I've kind of been able to bring through my resilience and grow my resilience in general is by having that mindset. And you may not see it immediately. It may not be immediate what that positive thing is. It could happen a year or two later. And you're like, wait a second, this is all because of that one negative experience that I'm now prospering. Um, but as long as you are looking for that and keep that mentality, it really will help you grow not only as a person, but career wise and friendship wise and relationship wise. So that's kind of my best advice that I could give is just always keep that outlook that, negative things will happen. It's part of life. Not everything always goes according to plan, but it's not that they won't happen. It's what you do after them, and how you make a negative event turn into a positive. And then seeing it like that too.
Well, that's very profound. I,
I try
I,
sometimes. Every now and then you get a little sliver out of me.
well, I really appreciate that goal, looking for the gold lining aspect, because I've never heard that, but it makes sense in your personal example of being done with silver. I like to think that both people, advocates with disabilities, and those who have yet to discover or
Oh,
embrace their own disabilities, listen and watch this program.
yeah.
I'm not naive to think that both groups are groups within those groups,
Hmm.
yet the same things and take away the same things as the other
Yeah.
groups. As my guest, and we've talked about a lot, and unfortunately, I couldn't book you for a 5 hour interview, which I'm really regretting. I'm really trying to figure out how I can make our next interview that long. Uh, that was a tangent. Uh, we've talked about Yeah, we've talked about so much, and as my guests, what do you hope that advocates with disabilities take away from this episode?
I think that the best thing that someone could take away is just to always be yourself, and speak up, because I know that a lot of advocacy and self-advocacy is crucial to making changes, but speak up with kindness, and a sense of empathy for who you're speaking with. Because I think that a lot of times as advocates, we can demand what we need to change and be angry about it and, harp on it, whatever it might be. But I think that a lot of times when you lead with that kindness aspect and that empathy, that, the people you're talking to are also humans. Um, so it's not like you're talking to a wall and can just scream at it. Like they're going to react to the way that you are speaking to them and talking to them. And so I think if you view the gold lining and you advocate with kindness, that's what I would want you to take out of this.
What do you hope that those who have yet to discover or embrace their own disabilities, regardless
Yeah.
of what they are, be them mental, physical,
Mhm.
psychological, what do you hope that they take away from this episode?
Yeah, I think that from a person who discovered their disability at a later age, I was 27 when I realized my mental health could be a disability, and was classified as a disability. Um, I think, don't be afraid of having a disability. As soon as I got through the stigma of mental health and started speaking about it and talking more about it, yes, it will turn some people off. Some people will get angry at you. Some people will hate on you. But you know what? Like, I mean, as Taylor Swift says, a hater's gonna hate. But I
Ella
think,
who?
yeah,
Okay.
right. No, I do think though the way, and this is going back to that gold lining thing again. I think, after Rio, I had haters online who were making negative comments about me. And my thought was, oh my God, I made it. I finally have haters. This is so exciting. Like people are taking time out of their day to hate on me. Like, wow, I am honored. And yeah, it still sucks. But like, it's like taking it with that mentality, and knowing that there are going to be people who are always going to be negative at you, looking at them with empathy, looking at what they're going through as well, but then being proud to have a disability too. We're a community, and no one's disability is better or worse or anything like that. We all have our own experiences,
Yeah.
but we can grow from each other and unite. And I think that for anyone that might be entering into the disability community or anyone that's been in the disability community for a while, like we're in this together. And we got to work together to make things happen. So,
Very well said, my friend. I need to find a way uh, to set up a 5 hour interview because
let's go.
you're just such a joy to talk to. I've learned so much from you on your non-linear journey that I hope continues for many, many years ahead. You are a breath of fresh air, and I will take away looking for the golden lining or gold lining
Yeah.
rather than the silver, which is uh, interesting mindset. If anyone wants to get in touch with you and has questions
Mhm.
on anything, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I think on the sort of more personal aspect side, like Paralympics, that type of
Yeah,
thing, non-current work related side,
yeah.
best option would be, send me a direct message on like Instagram or Facebook or something like that. My handle is J, S as in Sam, ICH Rockin, ROCKIN. So it's J Sitch Rockin is my handle. Yeah, I love it. I'm owning it. And haters gonna
You
hate.
absolutely
Um,
should own it.
and then for work related, I think the best, so anything disability advocacy, independent living, anything like that, feel free to shoot me an email at my work email, which is just Jenny, JENNY, at ncil.org.
Well, Jenny, I've had such a blast interviewing you. I really hope we get to do another episode very soon. I hope we get to meet in person at a
Yes,
conference or
we will.
what have you. Uh, your your story is such one of perseverance. I'm super glad you're thinking and I hope actively planning to write your memoir and
Yes,
please do an audiobook version. I geek out
absolutely.
over audiobooks. I will be in the front row of your book
Let's
reading it,
go.
getting it signed. You are such a great person, and I've learned so much from you, and I look forward to learning from you for many years to come. thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Take care.
You too.